Ashley, I'm ready to go if you are. Looks like we are, huh?
Okay, I'm ready too.
Okay.
We cannot turn our cameras on though.
Oh,
Says the host has disabled it.
is that me?
Either you or Ashley, I would think.
Okay,
Oh,
you
it's-
should be able to now, I think.
Yay.
Sorry about that.
All right.
Keeping us in the dark.
Okay. It is 11:45, so I am going to call the June 16th Public Works Committee to order. We continue to meet via Zoom webinar, so if you are joining us by Zoom, please use the raise and lower hand feature to let us know that you would like to speak or provide public comment, and we will call on you. If you are joining us by phone, please lower your hand by pressing *9 and *6 to mute and unmute yourself. You can always leave a voice message for the entire City Council by calling 406-552-6012. You can email council@ci.missoula.mt.us. These meetings are recorded and you can access them via YouTube or MCAT. And with that, if we can do a quick roll call, Ashley, that'd be great.
Anderson,
She's absent.
Becerra,
Present.
Contos,
Here.
Harp, Hess, Jones,
Present.
Merritt,
Present.
Ramos, Cheryl,
Present.
Vasika, Von Lossberg, West, okay, thank you.
Thank you. So it looks like we don't have a quorum, so we'll make a note of that for our business items on the agenda. Let's do a quick check for public to provide any. No, let's do approval of minutes, or I guess we'll approve minutes later. Or we'll note that we did not approve them because of quorum.
I think Sandra just joined. Does that give you a quorum?
No, we still
Okay.
need one more body. That's okay. If we get someone else, although the baby could count as two of Sandra. We'll make a note of that. We'll see if we get one more person and then approve minutes, but if not, we'll put them at the end. Let's quickly see if we have any public for public. Looks like we don't. So with that, we will move to our first item on the agenda, and that is item 3.1, construction services agreement with Zootown Investments for the Remington Flats Phase 1 water main and sewer main upsize project. And Ross, you're on.
Thanks, Marita. And I did see that Heidi just joined. So does that give us
Yes.
the quorum? Awesome.
Let's see.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So this is okay. I'll give the background. I'm here today. Hello, everybody. I'm Ross Mollenhauer, the city's engineering manager. I'm here today to ask you to approve a construction service agreement with let's see, with Zootown. Let me get their name right. Zootown Investments LLC. This is for the Remington Flats Phase 1 water main and sewer main upsizing project. And so the key word there is upsizing. This is a private development project, but we are entering into an agreement. We'd like to enter into an agreement with them to upsize the water main and sewer main within their development. And so this is an old city rule that I haven't directly worked on. in my experience here, I know Logan's had some experiences with this, but basically the idea is that when the city recognizes there's more of a regional benefit, we're willing to upsize a sewer main or a water main, and we're willing to pay for that increase. So the development might only need, in this case, they only need 8-inch sewer or water mains, but we've recognized that we would like an 18-inch sewer main. And I'd like to share my screen with everybody if that's okay, so I can show exactly what we're talking about. These are in the referral in case you want to look at them further. Let's see if can everybody see my screen right now?
Yep.
Okay, so this is the kind of this area. Let's see these section lines, this thin line right here. This rectangle here is Remington Flats for those that aren't familiar with it, but this is north of 44 Ranch. And we've identified we would like to this construction agreement that we'd like to approve is to upsize this sewer main, which would normally just be 8 inches. Like I said, we'd like to take it from 8 to 18 inches. And the idea is it would connect here to our existing sewer collection system and then run this way. This darker purple line is a 15-inch sewer main that would also be upsized. But the regional benefit is that by doing this, we can run this sewer main all the way through the Bill Grant area. And we are working to coordinate this with the build project. So we got the cost estimates, bid results from the developer's engineer and reviewed them internally, and we feel that they're appropriate. The bid prices are definitely higher. We're seeing that all over in our bid climate right now due to material scarcity and contractor availability. They're definitely higher than we'd like, but I think that's just the nature of the game in Missoula right now. So that's kind of the sewer picture. Let's see if I can share you the water picture. This is what we're trying to do for water. Again, we're trying to kind of create a transmission line through this area that would serve the Bill Grant. There's been talk of kind of some wells on airport property, and this would kind of give us the ability to convey that well water throughout the area and eventually connect north of Broadway to our system over there with the tank. So again, this is Remington Flats, and we're trying to put a 16-inch water main here rather than an 8-inch main. I think that's my spiel. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Thank you, Ross. Julie, go ahead.
It's always hard to find the button when our screen gets small. I'd be happy to make the recommended motion. And Ross, can you clarify where the funds for this are coming from?
Thank you. I hope Dennis Bowman's not watching right now. Yeah,
I'll channel him for you.
This would all be from the development funds, the water development and the sewer development fund would pay for this.
Okay. And one more question, if I may, Mirta.
Go ahead.
Just to clarify, so what the city is paying for is just the additional cost that comes from sizing these lines larger than what the developer needs for his immediate subdivision. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. We're paying for the difference between the size we'd like, 18 inches for sewer, and the size that they would need, the 8-inch. So yeah, we're paying for the difference only.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you so much. We have a motion on the floor. I don't see any public in attendance to provide public comment. So with that, we will take a roll call vote, please. Ashley.
Sarah,
Yes.
Contos,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Merritt,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
Vasika,
Yes.
West.
Yes.
That's 7 yeses and 0 nos.
Great, so that will go on our consent agenda. Thank you, Ross.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Next on our agenda is professional services agreement amendment number 1 with Nelson Nygaard for the 2020 LRTP. Take it away, Aaron.
Yeah, thanks. Hi, everyone. It's Aaron Wilson, the Infrastructure and Mobility Planning Manager for the city. And this item is to amend a contract we have with Nelson Nygaard, who've been working diligently on our long-range transportation plan update for the Missoula Metropolitan Planning Organization. So this amendment is, there's two parts to it. Both are related to work at the MPO level, which is housed within the city, and the city administers the MPO funding and contracts, and all of our staff are housed within the city, but that funding comes from federal sources through the MPO for transportation planning. And so I can talk a little bit more about that funding implication at the end of this, but the two pieces to this contract amendment, the first part is adding some additional funding from those PL funds to the contract to complete work on the long range transportation plan. The reasons for that are twofold. One is we've had some out of scope work in large part due to responding to COVID and a global pandemic over the last year. So we had to shift how we were conducting this long range transportation plan sort of in midstream or early stream on that project. We had our initial kickoff in person. We had a public involvement plan and a process in place in January of 2020, and then COVID hit in March. So we have had to shift our focus, and part of that included doing different types of public meetings. So we had more virtual meetings. We had our consultants available virtually more frequently, which meant that they attended more of our committee meetings, city council meetings, planning board, things that they wouldn't necessarily have attended as frequently if they were coming here in person. And so while we saved a small amount on travel costs, the preparation that went into their attending those meetings in terms of preparing presentations, the staff time, really was just sort of out of the initial scope that we had. And so we spent a lot more time on those public outreach efforts than I think we would have otherwise. The flip side of that is there was a lot of value in having consultants meeting with us and meeting with our committees monthly, as opposed to 2 to 3 or 4 times over a 1.5-year process. And so we've had really good feedback throughout the process in a way that we wouldn't normally. There's just a cost associated with that. We also had some additional scope that we added throughout as we went through the process related to data and evaluation that we hadn't necessarily anticipated early on or when we were setting up this contract. A lot of that is related to evaluating scenarios and doing some of the growth scenario evaluation and some of our existing conditions analysis. And so that took a little bit of extra work, but again, there was a lot of value. And as we were going through this process, that was a decision we had made to reflect the questions we were getting and the desire from our committees and others that just to understand how our transportation planning related to our growth and different potential ways that the community might grow. And so there were some additional costs associated with that. And so we're adding about $65,000 onto our existing contract to cover the remaining work that we have left in this contract to get the plan completed and the final steps before we're wrapping that up. The second part of this contract amendment is for some additional scope of work that we identified through the course of the long range plan update related to our transportation demand management planning and thinking about where we are as a community and doing some evaluation of best practices and getting a recommendation for actions we can take related to our regulatory environment around transportation demand management. So evaluating things like parking requirements, traffic impact analysis, and how we're doing that and sort of taking a more comprehensive approach to looking at a full multimodal evaluation or potentially making recommendations for revising our regulations around TDM so that it accomplishes a couple of things. One is having regulations that reflect our community goals around transportation, and 2, hopefully offering some additional flexibility for developments that around parking and transportation improvements, that if you have a development going in that has really high quality transit service and good bike ped connectivity and other things that and different types of development that may not require as much parking, that could give some flexibility, or that's sort of one example. The other part of that is looking at potential TDM districts. So thinking about how we're approaching it comprehensively downtown. And that includes looking at parking garages and emerging types of mobility, transit service, how all of that relates, and how we can utilize those services for new development and businesses and commercial development and residential to better utilize our transportation system. So what this will get us at the end of the proposed scope of work is a set of recommendations for how we can move forward on that. Essentially, what are we ready for as a community? What are some best practices? What are the opportunities in our upcoming code revisions that we're likely to see over the next couple of years for integrating these concepts from transportation into our regulatory environment and our ongoing programs, and how we engage with different districts in Missoula and apply this in different locations that have different types of service. So I think it's going to be a really huge step for us in terms of just identifying what we can do for transportation as the community continues to grow. So that's an additional $85,000 on this scope. Again, that's coming from our federal PL funds. And so all of that said, the financial implication of this for the city is really there is no city general funds that are required for this. This is all being paid for and is currently approved by the MPO. So TPCC approved the contract amendment yesterday, and the TDM planning was approved in our work program last fall. And so we have the funds available. They were already programmed for this work. And so this is just approving the contract amendment so that we can get started on the work. I think that's all I have on this item, but if there are any questions, either about the contract amendment or the proposed work, happy to answer those.
Thanks, Aaron. I just want to add that I think given how challenging 2020 was, being able to provide as many venues for public engagement and having the consultants meet with all the different groups and bodies that needed to be updated regularly is worth the increase in funds, in my opinion. And then the TDM work, you're right on. I think it's important for us to have that information as we make decisions and set priorities for how the community will grow. It's a key piece of that puzzle. So I'm happy to support that decision. Julie.
Thanks. Real quick, maybe you said this and I missed it. What does TDM stand for?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm so used to using acronyms all the time. It's
Most of them I get, but
transportation demand management. So it's this idea of sort of using a full suite of transportation options in order to accommodate growth around Missoula. And so thinking comprehensively about vehicle, transit, bike, pedestrian, and whatever new exciting modes of transportation might come out, sort of thinking about them comprehensively and together as a system as opposed to individually.
thank you. I think you did say that, and I just didn't quite put what the words that you said together with the acronym. And another quick question, if I may, Mirta.
Go ahead.
I am hopeful that part of the focus of this additional scope of work will be to look at how we can improve our transportation for those who have mobility impairments. Can you speak to that at all, Aaron?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I don't know that I have a good answer on how it could yet, but it's certainly something that we could add into the scope to make sure that our TDM policies are ensuring that we have good access for people of all abilities. I think all of the work that we do, we try to focus on that as much as possible. And that's something we could certainly look at and do an assessment of what are we requiring and how does that help us promote accessible transportation?
Yeah, I guess I would appreciate to see it, kind of overtly stated as one of our goals, so that it doesn't get lost in the shuffle. That said, I would be happy to make the recommended motion.
Great, thanks, Julie. Any other questions from council members? Okay. And we have a motion on the floor. I don't see any members of the public on the waiting room. So with that, we will take a roll call vote, please.
Sarah,
Yes.
Contos,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Merritt,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
Vasika.
She had to step out.
Okay. West.
Yes.
That is 6 yeses and 0 nos.
Great. So that was approved by 6 members. So we'll make a note of that, that we didn't have a quorum, but it will go in our consent agenda. Okay, thanks, Erin. And next we have revisions to the MPO agreements with Department of Transportation, and that is Erin Wilson.
Yeah, thanks. So this is another bit of administrative work for the MPO. Essentially approving the mayor's signature on a number of agreements that we are updating for the MPO. 2 of these are really just simple updates to reflect departmental restructuring. So we had the reorganization with development services and creation of the expanded public works and mobility and community planning, development and innovation. And that had some impacts on just who is referenced in these MPO agreements. So the MPO moved from development services into public works and mobility. And so this is just a bit of housekeeping to make sure our agreements around formation of the MPO are current. And so whenever we update these agreements, all of the members of the MPO need to sign. And so that includes the city, the county, Mountain Line, and on some agreements, the planning board also signs. So as a little bit of history, when the MPO was first created back in the early 1980s, one of the requirements is that the MPO has to be designated as a body that is authorized by the state to make decisions and essentially can be designated as the MPO. That's not a great description of it, but essentially the planning board was designated as the MPO. And then through these agreements, the authority to make decisions and conduct the work is delegated to TPCC, our Transportation Policy Coordinating Committee. And so that is one of the agreements. And then the membership of TPCC and our Transportation Technical Advisory Committee is outlined in that MPO process agreement, which is one of the 3 that we have here for the mayor to sign. That was just updated to reflect Public Works and Mobility and CPDI membership. Otherwise, it is staying the same. We also have an agreement on performance-based planning. That's really all we're changing there is reference to Public Works and Mobility and who is signing that. And then finally, the 3rd agreement is related to administration of our PL funds. So those are the transportation planning funds that we get that fund things like our long range plan update and the contract amendment that we just discussed. And it outlines sort of just the process and requirements for receiving those funds, how they're being administered within the city, the roles and responsibilities, reporting requirements. There's some federal non-discrimination requirements that we have included. And so it outlines that, and it really is just an update to that agreement that makes us current with MDT and for managing those PL funds. So not a whole lot of changes. It won't change any of our process. It just gets us current and making sure we're dotting all of our I's and crossing our T's with MDT and with the federal government. So with that, if there are any specific questions on any of those agreements or the changes we're authorizing the mayor to sign, happy to answer. Otherwise, we'll get these signed and get back to work.
Sounds good. I just wanted to add, Aaron, in that history of the MPO and the planning board, that I think the reason, or one of the reasons the state recognizes the planning board as the MPO is because it needs city and county membership and to reflect the boundaries of the MPO. Because I always thought it was interesting that it was the planning board making some of those decisions.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And the MPOs have to be sort of legally recognized body by the state. So essentially designation of MPO happens at the state level, not at the federal level. And so in the early forming, we even tried to look at whether TPCC could be designated as the MPO, and they can't because it's not sort of recognized by the state as an official decision-making body that has that
Yeah.
authority under state law. So.
Yeah. Julie.
Thanks, Aaron, for all the I dotting and T crossing. I think that our reorganization of city staff is a good thing, but it has this kind of fallout sometimes, and you have to go comb through all the details. So appreciate that. I'd be happy to make the recommended motion.
Thank you, Julie. We're taking them all at once, just all three motions. Great. Still no public to provide public comment on this motion. So with that, we'll take a roll call vote, please.
Becerra,
Yes.
Contos,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Merritt,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
West.
Yes.
Okay, that's 6 yeses and 0 nos.
Great. So that too will go on our consent agenda, but we'll note that we didn't have a quorum. Thank you, Anne, for all your work on this and keeping everything crossed and dotted. Much appreciated.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, and if the minutes can wait, Ashley, until the next meeting when we have a quorum, I think that would be great, unless you think it needs to be approved now.
Nope, that works for me.
Okay, so we'll just add them to the next meeting, and with that, we would be adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Ashley.
Thank you.